Hi folks. This is gonna be a video of the top 6 cars, just to take a look underneath the hood, just to see what's under the hood, just to help out other slot car builders that are out there, and give us all a little bit of ideas maybe as to what makes some of these cars tick. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start off with the 6th place car, Redliner. Steve's out of Michigan, United States, and he had a Maserati Slot It here. It was the only Slot It in the whole group, which is quite impressive. Let's take a look at how much this thing weighs here. Comes in at 89 grams. Quite a bit of body float here. Let me just adjust this light a little bit here. Okay. And quite a bit of body float. Hard to see how much the screws are backed off, but at least a full turn, judging by how much it's moving. Stock windscreen, it looks like. Looks like a stock white kit that he painted white. You can see the water slide decals that Steve applied. Sits nice and flat on the block. Not much clearance. It's pretty low. Solid front axle. Not independent wheels. Both are turning at the same time. Let's open it up. Electrical tape for dampening. Some pod movement, a little bit. Okay, so under the hood here we got a Lexan cockpit. Block of weight behind each of the front wheels, a block on the pod in front of the motor, Shark 28K Evo motor, 11x33 gearing, wheels are just barely touching the block, just barely. Yeah, I see a little bit of space underneath the pod mounts. So a little bit of movement in the pod for suspension. Motor's screwed in. Slot It guide. Slot It 8mm front hubs. CBD design 13mm rear hubs with big fat NSR Vanquish Ultra Grip tires. I think that's model number 5223. Yeah, 5223 for the Vanquish 13 mil. I don't see any weight underneath the axle. Only spots with weight. Thanks, Steve. Great job this year. 6th place. Steve actually came from behind. He was the last half of the race, last half of the 10 races, I should say. His worst result was 5th place. And he had 3 podiums in the last half of the season. So he really caught up to the group. Up next, we have Courtney out of Tennessee in the United States. The beautiful sideways Ford GTE, custom livery. Heard through the grapevine his favorite livery is the Benetton livery. It's really nice. Great job on that. So Courtney, yeah, he was consistent all year. He had 1 podium finish, and most of his finishes were the 4th, 5th, and 6th position range, just outside the podium. But yeah, he was very consistent all year. Looks like a stock windshield. Looks like, yeah, it's loose through the wreckers of a 10-round series. Car sits nice and flat. Pretty low, not quite as low as Redliner's car. I should add too, this is the only car in the top 6 that does not have 13 mil wide NSR tires for Vanquish cars. Courtney has 10 mil hubs here. So quite the interesting stat. 5 out of the top 6 have 13 mil wide tires. Let's give this away. Very light, 72 grams. Might be the lightest of all 6 of these cars. One of the lightest cars in the whole series too, I think. Body float, quite a bit of body float. Just like Redliners. Maybe a little more than Redliners, I would say. The windshield, stock windshield, like I said. So underneath the hood here, we have a hard red sideways chassis. Looks like he has all the supports all wide open for float. On the inside for the pod support, which also helps isolate the chassis from the motor. Sidewinder. And what's interesting, this is the only car in the top 6 that has one of these Professor Motor 050 motors. This one's a 35K. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, 35K. There's a couple other cars in the group, maybe 3 or 4 other cars in this series that had the similar motor. Gearing, 8x29 gearing. Slotting plus guide, really long. NSR plastic front hubs, both turned at the same time, so it's not independent. Rear slotted air hubs with 10 mil wide NSR ultra grip tires. Weight, since it weighs so little, he only has weight right here in the front of the pod, none underneath the axle. Looks like he replaced the front support with some sort of carbon piece that he put in. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or the original broke. Yeah, there's quite a bit of play in the pod. You can see the movement. Quite a bit. So at least a mil. There's at least a mil gap there. And no tape on the pod on this car. Oh, he's got some weight on this cavity right underneath the motor. So there we go. Weight up here and weight on this cavity here, nice and flush. Looks like you put a piece of brass in there. Great job, Courtney. 5th place. So 4th place, we have JMS out of Czechia. Yuri had a fantastic season, finished 4th overall, but he was very consistent all year. He had 4 podiums all year. Didn't really have any bad finishes at all from what I remember. Great car. So GMS entered a Black Arrow Ferrari 458. This looks like one of those Black Arrow liveries you'd have to decal yourself. Yeah, one of those kits. Beautiful Momo livery. See how much it weighs. 89 grams. I think a lot of the cars in this series were between 85 to 90 grams. So kind of right there in the ballpark of most of the other cars. So body float, quite a bit of body float. Lots of movement there. Windshield. It's a little thinner. I'm not sure if Black Arrow makes a slightly thinner windshield as stock or not, but it's definitely a thinner windshield than, you know, the Racer Sideways or stock Scaleauto cars. So it's a little thinner windshield. So it might be a Lexan windshield. I'm going to guess it is a Lexan windshield just by the flex that I'm seeing. So on the block, very low, definitely less than a mil clearance. Nice big long screws. Okay, so we have here a 3D SRP chassis. Independent wheels. They're just barely touching the roadway. Just barely. Try to eyeball it. Yeah, just barely touching the roadway. So yeah, SRP 3D chassis. Kahuza 25K motor. I have no experience with those motors. It's got the big window, sidewinder, and looks like a slot.it 0.5 offset sidewinder pod. It's got tape, looks like duct tape for the float. A little bit of pod movement there. Yeah. Not as much as the other two cars. I'm going to say it's definitely under 0.5 mil, maybe, yeah, even less. Not much movement, but there is some. Looks like it would be just, you know, quarter turn, maybe half turn max of the screw. Quite a bit of flex in this chassis, actually. Lots of flex. SRP has this cutout here around the pod. So we got 11 by 34 gearing. Slotting plus guide. Not sure if you can see that. Slotting plus guide, and the front are, looks like 15 by 8 fronts. The hubs, looks like slot.it. And for my notes here, they're front SRC zero grip tires. The rear hubs are G. Martin 16 by 13 hubs. Big fat tires with NSR Super Grip 5222 Vanquish tires. Great job, Yuri. Third place car. That's my car. So this car is a sideways Ford GTE. This car actually did fairly well all year. It had 7 podiums, the most of all the cars, but there was only 1 win out of all those podiums. The first 5 races, actually, it finished 2nd place every race, the first 5 races, and then it fell off a little bit, and then it actually had a win in Calgary. So, and then it had a 3rd place finish, I think, the last race here. So on the block, actually has the most space of all the cars. Chassis clearance might be about 1 mil. Custom livery, GoDaddy, orange and green. This car weighs 93 grams. windshield, stock windshield, sideways windshield. The front axle turns both wheels, so does not have independent wheels. So on the block, the wheels sit firmly on the block, the front wheels. Tape on the pod to limit the suspension. A little bit of movement there. Actually, the least of all the cars. Definitely the least amount of movement. This, yeah, from what I remember, it's only like a quarter turn loose, the pod. Maybe even only an eighth of a turn loose. Okay, weights. Got some weight behind the front wheels. Couple strips on each side of the pod opening. Weight in front of the motor, and then weight underneath the rear axle. This is all cut, the slot's all cut around the chassis. It's a standard black sideways chassis with a slotting plus guide. And motor, NSR 25K Shark motor. 11 by 34 gearing. CBD 15 by 8 front wheels. Those are the CBD racing wheels. Both front and back, 8 mil wide. And the rears are 15 by 13. CBD racing with 13 mil Vanquish super grips, model number 5222. So big grips, just like JMS's and Redliners that we just saw. Okay, we'll go on to the next car. Second place car, PKCZ, Peter, out of Czechia. So Peter, he had a lot of top qualifiers. I think he had 6, which is the most of the whole group. That's a lot of points. 6 times 2, that's 12 points he collected just from top qualifying. He had 3 wins and 6 podiums. So what PK has here is it's a Scaleauto Honda HSV. Not sure. I think this is a stock livery. He might have added some of his own decals, it looks like to me. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. Very wide, squarish car. I should mention the definitely a Lexan windshield on this car. How much does it weigh? 90 grams. So CGY Racers cars, the heaviest so far at 93, and then PK at 90, and then JMS at 89. And then Courtney was way down there below 80 in the 70s, and I think Redliner was in the 80s. Body float, lots of body float, lots. One thing I wanted to mention is a lot of these rear hubs on some of these cars, they're ground down quite a ways. They're probably definitely approaching around that 19 mil mark, I would say, just by my estimate. Here's Redliners. Very small too. PK, or not PK, GMS. Same thing. Ground down quite a bit. And then you have my car, CGY Racers. It's not ground down as much as those guys, you can tell. You can sure tell the difference. Maybe I'll just give it a quick measure here. I'll take the body off. Okay, Redliner. What's he down to? Yeah, around 18.75 mil. JMS, a little higher. About 19 mil. 19 mil. Courtney. He's got the non 13 mil Vanquish. 10 mil wide. Yeah, he's around 18.9. And mine, I know for sure it's way higher than that. Yeah, mine are at about 20.5 mil. Yeah. So definitely seeing how high my car sits. That's the reason. And then PKCZ. Around 19 point. Yeah, about 19.3. So yeah, they've come down quite a bit. I know I ground mine down quite a bit, and these guys ground theirs even more. Maybe that's what I needed to do. Grind it a little more. Okay. Looks like just barely touching. Yeah, just barely touching the front wheels and their independence. Weights, he's got a lot of weight on the front of the pod. A lot. It's stacked at least, oops, at least 3 high. You can see that the weight is almost, well, it's actually higher than this rib on the pod, so it's got a lot of weight in it in front of the motor. No weight behind the motor underneath the axle. And this chassis is a 3D SRP chassis, just like GMS's. Feels a little stiffer, probably just because it's got all this duct tape on here. GMS's, well, actually, yeah, both have about the same amount of duct tape. Okay. This doesn't feel as flexible as GMS's does. So yeah, that's it for the weight. That's a lot of weight right in front of the motor. This car handled very well. It was glued to the track. I'd say it's the most glued on the track compared to any other car, so maybe it's a good trick to try. Shark 25K Evo motor with 11x34 gearing. The guide is my notes, it says a Scaleauto 3D printed guide, so not familiar with that. The front are slotted hubs, 15x8, with coated front tires. Rears are G. Martin 16x13 hubs, big wide 13mm hubs for the wide 13mm Vanquish tires. And these are super grips as well, 522. So super grips seem to be fairly common for a lot of these cars. I know my car had super grips, Vanquish tires. JMS, he had super grips, the 5222 model. A Redliner, he had Ultras. Actually coming up, Smokio, he's got 13mm Vanquish Ultras as well. So a bit of a mix. But yeah, these super grips, they worked really well on this particular car. Great job, Peter. Our champion, Smokio. So, Smokio, he had 4 wins in a row, right in the middle of the series. That just boosted him right to the top. Very consistent car. His worst finish all year was 6th place, which is very good. He had 5 podiums altogether and 4 top qualifiers. PKCZ at 6 what do you have? He had 6 top qualifiers, but Smokey had 4 and got the wins. 5 wins, so great job. Actually, one interesting note here. I'm not sure if this is correct, but I've written down here, Smokey had 5 podiums, and of those 5 podiums, all 5 were wins. So that's absolutely amazing, and that's how you do it. That's exactly how you do it. Definitely a Lexan windscreen, ultralight. Custom paint. Smokio, I know, is for probably 2 decades now. Been using this livery in proxy races. Ever since I started keeping track of Slot Car Illustrated in 2005, I remember his livery's green, yellow, and white. How much does this weigh? 83 grams. So this is the second lightest of the top 6 cars. Courtney was the lightest in the 70s, and then we had Smokio, 83, and then the rest were in the high 80s, low 90s for the other 4 cars. Actually, sorry, no. The Maserati of Redliners was high 80s. Not that close to 90. Clearance. That's some clearance. Not quite as low as some cars, but I'm going to guess 0.5 mil clearance. So we have a Scaleauto Viper. The chassis is a stock Scaleauto Viper chassis. Got some silicone in the holes there. Okay. So Smokey out here, he's got 2 blocks. Well, yeah, 2 blocks just behind the axle. 2 or 3 stacks of weights in front of the motor. None underneath the axle. Yeah, none underneath the axle. We got a Slot.it 29K motor. That's the only car in the top 6 with a Slot.it motor. Sidewinder. And the pod, I think, oh yeah, that's the 3D pod. I can't remember the brand. So I can't remember the top of my head, but it's a 3D pod. I think I might have one on the shelf here, just to jog my memory. Yeah, it's a CG. Yeah, it's a CG Slot Cars Sidewinder pod. Okay, so yeah, it's firmly on the block. Lots of grip on the front wheels. Tons of grip. You can't even turn the wheels. Yeah, he's got NSR Ultra Grips on the front. Tons of grip on the front. I know for our race here, we cleaned the front wheels just because there's some debris from the packing box, and that probably really helped him out in winning this round. All 4 wheels grip the car, and we saw that with, we've seen that with a few cars. Chris Guy W on his Porsche Proxy car, Heli CA when he won the GT3 in 2021, I think it was 21. He had sticky fronts, and yeah, I got that block tilted quite a ways. So, okay, independent. So the front hubs, actually both sets of hubs are CB Design racing hubs. NSR Ultra Grips in the front, 18 mil wide hubs in the front, and then the rear are CB Design 15 by 13 hubs with the big fat Vanquish, but they're Ultra Grips on the back. And the Ultra Grips are in pretty good shape, actually. I remember they were very smooth when they first arrived here, and they're actually looking pretty good. Pod movement. Hardly. Well, actually, no, there's pod movement. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Not sure if you can see that there. Yeah. Half a mil, something like that. Who knows? About half a turn, maybe. Actually, no movement on the front pod. Well, the mounts don't move. These 2 mounts, there's no movement on them. But with this CG Slot Cars 3D pod, you got movement through this pivot point here. Yeah, these are solid. All movements through this pivot point. Looks good. Well, thanks again for a great series, guys. And this is the last video, I promise, of this series. Congratulations, Smokey-O. First place. Enjoy it for the next year. Okay. Take care, everyone.